Thanks for having us here. My name is Eric Jones, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my background and why we're going to be Rodney Davis in 2018. But first, I need to say how big a deal it is for me to do this at SIUE, because I'm a SIUE college graduate, and my wife is as well, and this is where we met. And my parents met here as well, too. And so it actually sort of is a nice thing for me. It means a lot to my family that we actually do these forums here on SIUE's campus. So I'm glad to be here. So my wife and I decided to undertake this challenge and this campaign because we have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and when they are old enough to understand what's happening right now, we want to be able to tell them that their mom and dad have done everything they possibly can to change the direction of the country during the Trump era. And so for us, that means jumping in this race and trying to flip the House and get the House of Representatives back. Now, I've been in this fight for a long time. I'm a former Illinois Assistant Attorney General. I'm a former Chief Investigative Counsel of the United States Senate, and I've been fighting on behalf of people throughout my career, and that's what this campaign has to be about. Now, I think we've spent a lot of time in recent years, given who our current elected officials are, telling everybody who we're not. We have told people as Democrats that we're not Donald Trump. We spent a lot of time telling people that we're not the Republican majority in Congress, and I'm certainly not Rodney Davis. But in order to start winning elections back, in order to take back this country, I think we as Democrats need to tell people who we are and what we stand for. And what I believe is this. I believe that we need an economy that works in every zip code, and that we don't have one because of policy decisions that have been made in Washington. I believe that health care is a human right and that we need universal coverage as fast as possible. I believe young people should get the education or training they need without going into ridiculous amounts of debt to do it. I believe that climate change is real and science is an actual thing. I believe that Citizens United is the worst decision that the Supreme Court has made in recent years, and that corporations are not people, and I believe that the tax plan that's coming out of Washington is ridiculous, and we need to do everything we can to stop it. So I just ran out of time, but I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you.
I'm Dr. David Gill from Bloomington, Illinois. I'm an emergency room doctor, and I am a bold, progressive Democrat. And I was proud to be endorsed within the past 2 weeks by a pair of large organizations that grew out of the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats. Those are two organizations that stand for the type of bold, progressive agenda that I've been pushing for a long time, including a single-payer healthcare system, a $15 an hour minimum wage, and tuition-free access to public universities and colleges and trade schools. And that bold, progressive agenda, that's not just nice or decent or fair or moral. That agenda is how you defeat Rodney Davis here in Illinois 13. And I speak from experience. I ran for this seat once before, back in 2012, and Mr. Davis got very lucky that year. Because in years that end in a 2, like 2012, and only in those years, it's fairly easy for an independent to get on the ballot. And we had an independent that year, and he was a liberal independent, who went around the district saying all the same things that I was saying about climate change and campaign finance reform and single payer and gay marriage and a woman's right to choose. So that at the end of the day, I was running against both Rodney Davis and a mirror image of myself. And that mirror image split the vote just enough so that the real me fell short by 0.3 percentage point. And the liberal independent got 7 points, and Rodney Davis went off to Washington as an accidental congressman. And since that time, I've been working in the emergency room. I served some time as the assistant director of the Illinois Department of Public Health, and I've watched as subsequent moderate Democrats lost this seat by 50 to 60 times what I lost by. And I can't watch anymore. 2018 obviously does not end in a 2. Rodney Davis won't have the protection this time of some liberal independent, and I look forward to defeating him handily in a 2-person race next November. Thank you very much.
My name is Jonathan Ebel, and I teach in the Department of Religion at the University of Illinois. And I'm here today in front of you and not home cleaning out my gutters because of a couple of oaths that I've taken at different points in my life. The first I took when I was just 18 years old and was being sworn in as a midshipman in my ROTC unit. That was an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And those of you who've taken that oath know that it binds you, that it does not leave when you take off the uniform. The second oath is a silent oath that my wife and I shared each of the 3 times that we brought a new little girl into this world. That was an oath to love her through everything, to stand with her through everything, and always to teach her what it means to be a good person in this world. In the words of the prophet Micah, to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now, I'm not the sort of person who believes that every time a Democrat loses an election, an angel loses its wings. I understand that in a healthy democracy, there's going to be a certain amount of churn. But over the last 11 months, seeing what happened last November and the consequences of it, it has become clearer to me that I could not be true to those oaths that I took and not run for this office. It's the case that as we, as a society, are working together, we have the tools in our hands to undo the damage that we have done over the last 11 months. The policies that have been implemented and the people who have been implementing those policies are unqualified, they are unconcerned about the common good, they are unconcerned about common welfare, they care more about corporate welfare. If we elect the right people, we can have civil rights, women's rights, and workers' rights protected. If we elect the right people, we can have universal health care on a single-payer system. If we elect the right people, we can implement fact-based policy that will grow our economy, protect the environment, and put good paychecks in the hands of good people who desperately need them. That's what I plan to do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us today. Betsy Dirksen-Londergan, Springfield, Illinois. And, I knew that I had to get into this race. The day that I saw Rodney Davis celebrating with Donald Trump on the White House lawn, celebrating that they had just passed the Trump Care bill. That bill that Rodney Davis championed would have devastated Americans across the nation, and specifically our district. It would have closed rural hospitals. It would have caused huge job loss. It would have put lifetime limits back in place. And it would have left over 40,000 of our most vulnerable neighbors with no health insurance. And that was like a knife to the heart for me, because those protections that he was trying to repeal are the same protections that saved our family 8 years ago when my husband Tom and I almost lost our oldest son, Jack. Jack had a rare illness, was in the hospital for 21 days in the pediatric intensive care unit, and was read last rites not once, but twice. And we were very fortunate that we were able to take him home after that event and face a long road to recovery. And when the bills started coming, they just kept coming. And it became abundantly clear that if we hadn't had good health insurance, we would have gone bankrupt. And if we hadn't had good medical care, we would have lost our son. I am very passionate that health care is a right and not a privilege. And I want to protect the families in our district. I don't want anyone losing someone they love because they can't get to a doctor or afford a doctor. And I will take that passion to Washington, D.C., and I will fight for good paying jobs and safe workplaces. I will fight for education for our children and Social Security and Medicare. And yes, I will fight for our health care. Thank you.
So please describe your position on the current GOP tax overhaul. Are there elements of the proposed tax overhaul you support? Are there elements that you'd like to change? How would you work to represent your constituents?
I think the proposed Republican tax reform bill is abysmal, and there's nothing in it that appeals to me. It's another handout for the wealthy in this country. We've spent 40 years where millionaires and billionaires in this country are not paying their fair share, and it simply serves to further that type of underlying principle. It's a handout to them. The average middle-class household will gain nothing by it. It ultimately will result in cuts in needed services to people. It contains things in there that bring great harm to the middle class, the ever-shrinking middle class, I might add, in that no longer will the deduction be there with regards to your federal receiving your state and local taxes. There's a little item hidden in there too. I'm a longtime member of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, and they slipped into this bill a provision in which now pastors in their churches can be endorsing candidates while still maintaining their tax-free status. I've long said that it should be one way or the other, that they can't have their cake and eat it too. You can't be out of churches and not be paying any taxes. I'm somebody that believes that we pay enough taxes already, the vast majority of people that live here in Illinois 13. and that we need to alter the way in which we spend our money. We need to change our priorities. We don't need a Defense Department budget that is so bloated that it equals the next 8 to 10 countries put together. Starting to run a little bit low on time. But we've had a lengthy period of time since Ronald Reagan went into office nearly 40 years ago, where the wealthy and the corporations in this country have done very well, and I don't see any reason to allow them to do even better. They crow up their 35% corporate tax rate. In fact, almost half of them, 42% of those large corporations, pay a grand total of $0. Thank you.
There's one aspect of the plan that I would support, which is the effort to simplify our tax code. I think that's something that could benefit everyone, and I would be on board with a proposal that did that, were it growing out of the proper moral and historical position. And I think the Republican bill does not touch either of those. It's morally wrong in that it burdens working and middle-class families. It's historically wrong in that it returns to a trickle-down philosophy of economics, which we've demonstrated twice in the last 40 years to be not just wrong, but ruinously wrong. Reagan slashed taxes in 1980, and 7 years later, the market collapsed, and the poor and working families were left holding the bag. Bush slashed taxes in 2000, 2001. 7 years later, 8 years later, the housing market collapsed, and working middle-class families were left holding the bag. That, to me, is enough of a historical argument to call this whole trend into question. Morally, I approach taxes from the position that we all have gotten to where we are in our life through the benefit of those around us. That those who are the wealthiest got there because of the hard work of teachers, of first responders, of service employees, that we are a society that we are knit together as one. And if we are going to have a morally correct tax code, it has to be one that asks those who are at the top end of that spectrum not to pay their fair share, but to pay for those who are below them, who aren't below on the income scale, who aren't as well off, who need a little bit of help, but whose help got them to where they are. And so I would be looking for a tax plan, tax reform that actually increased taxes on those who are at the upper end of the income scale, recognizing this truth that they got there through the hard work of working people around them, that it's not a kind of rugged individual reality that got them where they are.
I totally agree that it is time for tax reform. I mean, the last time we had significant tax reform was 1986. And if you think about where you were in 1986 and where I was, I think I was in high school watching LA Law and probably singing along to Madonna, Papa Don't Preach. So yes, we do need tax reform. That being said, what they're proposing is not tax reform. It's almost as though they looked at our population and looked at who can be hurt the most. Teachers. Teachers spend so much money out of their own pockets in their classrooms already. They're going to take that away. They're going to take that write-off away from teachers. Come on. Students. They're going to hurt the students who have taken out student loans. No longer can they write the interest of their student loans off. Really? And then, an even bigger kicker, medical expenses. They're going to take the write-off away from families who have extraordinary medical expenses. Now, these people are taking care for they themselves, are chronically ill. They have parents in nursing homes. What are they supposed to do? Those write-offs are what is saving them. So no, this is not tax reform. All this is taking more money and giving it to the wealthy and balancing it on the backs of working families. Absolutely not.
Thank you. So you probably know where I'm at based upon my opening on this one. Here's what's happening right now in Washington. They are trying to put through tax cuts that have massive tax cuts for large multinational corporations and the super wealthy. And because of the way the system works out there on how to get a bill through, they have to find ways to offset those huge tax cuts. Which is why there are all these exceptions that they're trying to get rid of in order to get this thing to be budgeted. So what they're doing, we got 1.5 billion tax cut for super wealthy, getting rid of the state tax, dropping the corporate rate, etc. This is a huge giveaway. They've been trying to push this for years. And in order to get there, they're also getting rid of exceptions that people in this district and across the country use on a yearly basis. And that's some, we've already talked about some of that. It's the state local tax, which is ridiculous that we're getting rid of that. And the notion that our current member of Congress would be supporting that, given that Illinois pays a higher rate than a lot of other states. That's going to lead to a tax increase for a lot of us. They're getting rid of the, for mortgages, being able to put that on your, in fact, you sold a house, if it's something you don't put on your, you can project it for being taxed on that in different respects, medical expenses. And it also has a huge impact on small businesses. And that's something I've been focused on throughout this campaign, is what are we doing to help small businesses given how important they are to the district. And the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is not a left-leaning organization, has come out in opposition to this bill because of what it would do to small businesses, because it's such a giveaway for the large corporations. Now, I think it's also important for us to talk about what we are for. And so what I'm supporting is a tax cut for the middle class, because I don't know why in this country we don't have to do a tax cut for the middle class that has to be wrapped up in a huge tax cut for the wealthy too. So let's just give a tax cut for the middle class, and if we're going to give tax cuts to corporations, let's reward the corporations that are making jobs here for American workers. And let's find a way to do that, because there are proposals out there, and that's the kind of law I would support.
Question two. Please describe how you would address gun violence in America.
So, you're all aware that 33,000 people die in America of a gunshot wound every year. And that 2/3 of those are suicides. Tragically, this hit very close to home for my family this week, when the wife of a childhood friend who had been suffering from depression took her life with a gun that was in the house. This is, to me, a pressing issue of public health, and it's a pressing issue of education, and it's a pressing moral issue, and it is one where, frankly, we need the help of people who refer to themselves as responsible gun owners to get on board with a national education program about the absolutely dangerous intersection of guns and mental health problems in America. 22,000 people are taking their lives every year because there's a gun in the house and they're suffering from some form of depression or mental illness. Now, that's one factor that we need to deal with, is the public health factor. The other is the violent crime factor, where the superabundance of weapons in America is certainly feeding into that 330 million guns on the street. They're being sold to people and distributed to people on the idea that these are making us safer. Frankly, I'm tired of the NRA's position. I'm tired of their political wing making any reasonable restriction on those weapons seem like some sort of affront to the Constitution. I think we need to have a national gun registry. We need universal background checks on gun sales and on ammunition sales. And we need to be robust in licensing gun dealers, both here in the state of Illinois and nationwide. Thank you.
So with gun violence, I think right now what is the forefront of my mind is that we have a congressman who is co-sponsoring House Resolution 38, which is a concealed carry reciprocity bill. And what that's going to do is, Illinois, we have our own gun laws. We have our own laws about it. And what it's going to do is to make a federal law that supersedes state laws. And it will bring us down to the lowest common denominator. So Illinoisans have said that we don't want guns in our school zones. If this passes, that means that people can take guns into school zones. I absolutely 100% disagree with it. I think it's disconnected from our community, it's disconnected from our state, and I think it's massive overreach. And I am all for universal background checks. And I also, in a day and age when we have our medical records online, when we have to register to vote, and we have so much information that is digitized, let's get our gun registry digitized so that we can help when it comes time to find out where a gun has been and who it belongs to. I think that makes common sense. And I agree that it has to be addressed as a public health issue. And again, we have a congressman who, at every chance he has, is making cuts to things like Medicaid and mental health programs. And we have to address the larger issue, and we can't do that without funding. And mental health is a major component in healing us with gun violence. Thank you.
So I believe that gun violence is a major health crisis in our country. It's a huge problem, and we have to do something about it. Now, number one, I'm just going to walk through where I stand on this issue, so I'm very clear about it. I think bump stocks, which were part of the issue in Las Vegas, I think those should be outlawed immediately. I can't believe Congress have to move on that. I think, frankly, there's no justification for those to be legal. The reciprocity bill that was mentioned, I think is a terrible idea. And I think that Illinois should decide that its own law is on concealed carry. And it's interesting that the very people pushing this law, they like to talk about states' rights a lot. Just so happens in this case, they decided that state rights aren't all that important. So disingenuous to that argument is ridiculous. I also believe that terrorists and criminals, domestic abusers, should not be getting guns. And they're able to go get guns right now because we don't have a system set in place to ensure that they don't. And we don't have that system set up because of the gun lobby in Washington. And that is what's stopping us from moving forward on all these issues where the American people agree on this. There are some places where I think there are disagreements. But what I just walked through, I don't think there's a lot of disagreement on that project around this country. And there isn't, and there's not movement, and Rodney Davis isn't moving on it, and all those other members are not moving on it because of the gun lobby and because of the special interests in Washington. And I don't think one will just talk about the issue for base when it comes to special interests. I've been fighting against them my entire career as an attorney. And all the progress we're all talking about up here on this stage, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on the environment, whether it's on a tax code that works for everybody, whether it's on gun issues, underlying all those issues are special interests in Washington that people are following and listening to instead of us voters. And I'm tired of it, frankly, and we've got to move forward. And the only way we're going to do this is get the people in Washington and do something about it.
It's a little tricky going forward because I agree with everything that has been said at this point. I agree with the need for outlawing bump stocks. I agree with mandatory background checks on every gun purchase in this country. I think also that we need to, the one area, I think in public policy where I agree with Dick Cheney, is that we need to limit the number of rounds per magazine to 10 or fewer. I agree with respect to reciprocity, that Illinois laws should be Illinois laws, and that we ought not ask to sink down to a place where we don't want to be. I agree with the overreach of the NRA and the impact that it has upon representatives like Rodney Davis. And I think, too, that on all of these positions, I'm driven by what I've seen over the course of my career in the emergency department. I don't just read about gun violence, I live gun violence. It comes into my department, and it crushes me. It breaks my heart to see young lives snuffed out, destroyed, altered, whatever. And the other thing that I see a great deal of are patients with mental health issues that are brought to our department after, say, their involvement in a standoff with police authorities. These background checks are meaningful. I know that there are some people who will mislead you and let us know that some of the largest massacres in recent years have been with people with no history. But the vast majority of people that are involved in gun violence do have a history of mental health issues or violence issues. And I think that Mr. Eagle speaks very appropriately when he talks about 2/3 of these gun deaths being suicide. And we have continued to devalue mental health and mental health care in this country for far, far too long. I'm sure that we'll get some questions about health care, but the type of national health care system that I envision will elevate mental health treatment to the same level as the physical elements that many people do. Thank you.
the congressmen who voted for Trump Care, which would have devastated our district jobs. Let's start with protecting the jobs we have, and moving forward, we need to invest in infrastructure and small businesses. And there are so many ways that we can invest in infrastructure and create jobs. Roads, bridges, our waterways, our electrical grids, these are all things that help our environment, help us get through our days safely. It will help the farmers move products along the river. These are things that people in our district really care about and want, and it will help grow our economy, and it will create jobs, and it's good for the environment. The more that we can bring in infrastructure money, that money, every dollar we spend in infrastructure creates $6 in the local economy. Let's really focus on bringing that money back to the district. And the other thing that we need to do, when we look at how we're getting our kids educated, not everybody needs a 4-year university degree for jobs. Our workforce is changing. Let's change with it. And one of the things that we really need to be pushing is apprenticeship programs. Apprenticeship programs nationwide can lead students to wonderful jobs. I think the average is about $60,000 a year that they can make. That is a good life in the 13th district. And if we're not encouraging our students to look at apprenticeships and getting into trades as a life skill and a full-time job, shame on us. That's a great life.
So I have a multi-pronged approach to how we're going to do this. We have an economy right now that's not working in every zip code, and I don't believe that that's an inevitability that we should just accept. I genuinely believe that the reason why we face that, why different parts of the district are having a tougher time economically than other parts, is because of decisions that are being made in Washington. But I grew up in Centralia. Centralia's had really tough economic headwinds for the last 30 years. I've seen what that has done to the community there. And I think the way we're going to address this is first, one, this district has a number of large universities in it throughout the district here at Edwardsville, Bloomington, Springfield, Champaign. I think one thing we need to do is make sure we're continuing to invest in our universities and our colleges. There's been an effort to cut those investments in recent years, and I think seeing what they've done for our communities is incredibly important. So you get people trained in any number of different areas, and those people can create businesses and start jobs. Part of that effort is ensuring that people are not coming out of college with ridiculous amounts of debt, because if you're making the biggest bet in your life just to get through college, you're not going to start that small business when you're in your late 20s or early 30s because you're paying down debt. I think that's something that we've been dealing with that needs a lot more attention. Secondly, if you look at this district, throughout it, the counties that make it up, there are 200,000 people who do not have access to broadband internet. And that is not acceptable, and that's not good enough. We've dealt with these issues before as a country. In the 1930s, we had an issue with rural electrification because of the point where it's no longer profitable to keep bringing those lines out to more rural areas. And so the for-profit companies stopped doing it. The government got involved and ensured that everybody in this country had electricity. We need to do the same thing with broadband internet. And that's because if you're trying to start a bed and breakfast, or you're trying to start a small business from your home, or you're trying to get educated, you want to take online courses, you have to have access to the internet. The final thing is, because I only have 10 seconds left, we've had an issue with antitrust in this country where we've allowed large mergers to happen without looking into the regional impacts, and we need to start getting back to that because that has had a huge impact on this part of the country.
I think that even more important than focusing broadly on the issue of increasing the number of jobs is increasing the number of good paying jobs in this country. We have seen the erosion of the minimum wage over a lengthy period of time. Had minimum wage kept up with inflation, minimum wage today would be $22, $23 an hour. Had it kept up with CEO pay, the CEOs who get so fat at the expense of all the rest of us, minimum wage would be more than $30 an hour. So I think that when I call for a minimum wage of $15 per hour and then index thereafter to inflation, that's more than reasonable. And giving people what they're worth is moral and just, and it's good for the economy. When you pay people $15 an hour for doing hard work, they go out and they spend that money. They don't hang on to the money the way the CEOs of the health insurance companies do. And I know what it is to work hard. I started working when I was 13 years old. My dad died when he was 37, and we didn't have anything extra. So I started bussing tables and washing dishes, and that's hard work. I worked my way through college and medical school, mopping floors and stocking the shelves when it came out. And when people do work hard like that, they should be rewarded. Nobody that works hard for 40 hours a week should live in poverty in this country. And then it goes on and on and on. Nearly 40% of households live paycheck to paycheck here in America, which is gravely wrong. I think too that when we got health reform, healthcare reform, people won't be tied to jobs that they need to hang on to just because of their health insurance, and they'll be free to act with the entrepreneurial spirit that made this country great, because they'll have health insurance through Uncle Sam, and that will further allow the economy to blossom and provide jobs that give them more decent work. Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly with just about everything that's been said up there. I do want to point to one thing that circles back on the question of tax reform. One way not to grow jobs is to slash corporate taxes. This has been demonstrated time and time again. This is a lie, that slashing corporate taxes is going to bring jobs back to the United States. What it ends up doing, in fact, is lining the pockets of those who are in charge of the corporations whose taxes are being cut, and lining the pockets of their shareholders. So when it comes to growing the economy and creating good jobs, good paying jobs, one thing that I think we need to look at is back to 1980 when Ronald Reagan launched his war on labor unions. Since the decline of the labor union, which began under the Reagan presidency, what we've seen is a growth in income disparity, a diminishment of the number of good paying jobs, and increasing job insecurity among the groups of Americans who need those jobs, who need that stability most. So I would be adamantly against the national right to work legislation. I want to fight against it here in Illinois and everywhere that we see it raise its ugly head. I think too, as we lean forward, this is connecting with the point that Eric made about education, we need to be thinking about what the next economy is to grow jobs. And from my perspective, that's the green economy. So if we're talking about building out infrastructure, that means we need a green energy infrastructure, one that is going to capitalize on wind energy, on solar energy, and create the infrastructure to distribute that green energy to the users who are going to take advantage of it. We need to have places where people can charge electrical cars and lean forward into an economy that is not a fossil fuel-based economy, but one that is rather sustainable and affordable and is going to protect the environment, protect the world that we hope to leave to our children. Thank you.
So we'll start the next question. Eric, describe your vision for our nation's energy future. Specifically, please describe your support or lack thereof for coal, fracking, solar, and wind energy.
So, first I should say, and I said this in my opening, I think we need to accept as a country that climate change is real and that we need to be addressing climate change based upon the science and based upon what our government is doing. And right now there is an effort in Washington to continue to undermine scientists, and that is a huge problem. And I mention that because it's related to what we need to invest in. So my background is I've actually investigated these issues before. I've looked into when I was at the House Oversight Committee during the Bush administration. It's the same thing that's happening right now. There were oil executives that got to have pilot positions in the White House, and they were editing reports that climate scientists from NOAA and EPA were drafting and crossing out global warming and climate change and putting it into something different. And we uncovered that issue when we highlighted it to show that that's what's going on. And I worked on those issues over and over and over again. And we've got to get people in Washington to understand what we're facing, because this is the biggest threat to our species moving forward. And because of that, I think we do need to focus on solar and wind and invest in green energy and not be afraid to do it. Now, there's a lot of talk about coal, and there's been an effort out of Washington recently by the people who are there to suggest that there's a war on coal, and that's why coal jobs are falling apart, and that's the issue. We don't have to do anything on coal because coal is so expensive right now that it's not functioning on its own. And so the economy is working on that by itself. The market is making the choice, and the choice is that coal doesn't work. And so we don't even have to address it. On wind and solar, we need to be investing in it heavily. Those are where the jobs are going to come from. I have talked to small business owners in Springfield and in Hillsborough, and they have created solar power companies where they're selling solar cells, and they are doing exceptionally well. And that is where the future lies, and if we don't catch up, other countries, China, Germany, are going to take the future from us because this is where it's headed. And so it is important that we invest in this and not be afraid to do it and start putting our country back in the right direction.
It's a great question, and I would quickly answer with regards to the 4 things you asked about. Coal, no public cars. Fracking, no. In fact, I was pleased to see that the one company that had applied for a fracking license down in Southern Illinois just to do that. Solar and wind, yes, 1,000 times yes. That we should be investing publicly in solar and wind. I'm a longtime member of the Union of Concerned Scientists. I believe in science. I think that we need people in Washington, D.C. that believe in science and who recognize that climate change is real, that it is truly threatening, and that it is man-made, and that we are in a very dire time now. People like Bill and David have been warning us about this for 30 years, and we stood still. I would say that China and Germany are already far beyond us. We are near the tipping point of irreversibility, to where it's almost getting to a point where it won't matter what people like the 4 of us talk about, or what Rodney Davis talks about. The future is almost lost now because of our inaction over the last several decades. And we must take it seriously. We must really invest ourselves in green energy. My first wife passed away several years ago, but she believed, as I believe, that our interest should be in those who come after us. And she insisted on buying paper products from a company called 7 Generations. Some of you may be familiar with that. And they're called 7 Generations because it comes from an old Iroquois tribe. Believe that in every public decision that we make, we need to take into account what the impact of that will have 7 generations down the road. And at this point, where we're going with regards to energy and climate change, we're not going to see 7 generations down the road. So things must be changed. Thanks.
So I imagine that I'm preaching to the choir here when I say that when it comes to almost any realm of policy, that you look at what the Trump administration is doing, and the morally and policy correct position is the exact opposite. When it comes to the environment, reducing regulations and swinging the country back towards fossil fuels is exactly the wrong way to be going. So I think we need to be frank about what's happening with coal and the coal industry, that it is becoming too expensive. And that these communities, if they want to thrive for generations going forward, need to start, and the federal government should help with this, educating and training for a green energy economy. Those waters that are rising that rose in Houston, those are waters that are rising around all of us. We are in this together. This is the planet that we share. And if we don't take it seriously as a shared endeavor to care for the planet that we have, to conserve the resources that we have, and to optimize the ones that come to us without effort, wind and solar, then we are doing all of us to this fate of rising waters and increasingly violent storms. So yes, the science is real. The policy paths are clear going forward. I think that we need to absolutely become parties again to the Paris Climate Accord, and to, again, acknowledge that this is not just a local problem. When it comes to coal, though, being part of the University of Illinois and seeing the amazing science going on there, the entrepreneurship, I think that we could stand a little bit more federal funding for carbon capture technology, not because it's going to be relevant here in the United States, but because economies globally, we don't really have a whole lot of control over. Maybe a market for carbon capture, India, China, the former Soviet Union, where we could create jobs selling these kinds of technologies overseas. And I would love to see that as a stimulus for our economy here in Illinois.
I think that we all agree that clean air and clean water are basic human rights. And right now we have the Trump administration who apparently disagrees with that. And we have a congressman who votes for the disapproval of the stream protection rule. And the stream protection rule was specifically in place to protect coal communities from pollution. And so when they took that rule away, it means that they can dump the rubble closer to the waterways, which will move to the waterways with mercury and arsenic. That's just backwards. So we need to have a representative in there who is looking out for all of us, including the coal communities and the people within themselves. And we need to make sure that we are making investments in those communities, in the energy communities, so that we can move them forward to the future and not leave them outside of job growth. So let's move them toward wind and solar. There's a lot of ways that we can do that. We can do it by giving tax incentives for clean energy and efficiency. We cannot give tax incentives for fossil fuels. And there are other ways that we can change our national dialogue by expanding clean energy and research development. There are so many things coming down out on the horizon. The University of Illinois is one of the leaders in clean energy research and agribusiness research. And we can work with our farmers and conservation and collaborative stewardship of the land. There are a lot of things that we can do together if we have the right people in place, if we agree that clean water, clean air, livable soil are all things that we agree on, and we just need the right representation.
So the next question on the topic is, describe your position on healthcare use support single payer.
I passionately support single payer. 25 years ago, I joined a group called Physicians for a National Health Program. That's a group of 20,000 doctors that have been pushing and pushing and pushing for all these decades to bring us the single-payer healthcare system that we so richly deserve. And we've been denied for far too long by politicians like Ronnie Davis. And this is a moral issue, this is a health issue, this is an economic issue. It touches my life on a daily basis. I see awful stories, shift after shift, year after year. I'm sick and tired of it. That's why I will never back down from a position of supporting single payer. The ACA is nice, there's 2 or 3 nice provisions in it, but it's still left the for-profit private health insurance industry running the show and denying people care that they need. Because that's their role, their mission, that insurance industry, is to maximize their profit. I saw a gentleman about 6 weeks ago now, down in Chester, Illinois. 60-year-old guy, hard worker, has insurance through his work, but it's not very good insurance. He had a terrible pain, went to see his doctor. She said, we need to go to the ER now. We probably need to do a CAT scan, do some lab work, maybe call a surgeon. He didn't go. You know why? He's got a $500 copay, like so many Americans. That's his health insurance. So he waited 16 hours. He finally showed up in my ER. His appendix had ruptured, and he was life-threateningly ill. And over and over again, we deal with that. Meantime, we've got the private health insurance industry. They suck $800 billion a year out of us for nothing in return. And they reward their CEOs. My poster boy for this is William McGuire, retired from United Healthcare in 2005, the CEO, $1.6 billion. You know what that is? Mr. McGuire, with the money you sent in for your premiums and co-pays, he can spend $100,000 a day, every day, on himself. After a year, after 5 years, only 2 years, Mr. McGuire, $100,000 a day, every day. Shameful. You can do so much better.
Healthcare is the moral issue of our time, and I approach it from a moral position first and foremost, with questions: what's the right number of babies who can't see doctors? What's the right number of families bankrupted by chronic illness? What's the right number of rural hospitals that closes because patients aren't able to pay their bills? For me, that number is 0. And if you support the ACA, which has been a good step in the right direction, your number is considerably higher than 0. If you're Rodney Davis, your number is around 70 million. And to me, that is morally reprehensible. We deserve a healthcare system where We don't have to worry about being kicked when we're down. Someone loses their job, they're down. In this system, they're then kicked because they lose their health care. That also, to me, is a pressing issue. We need to decouple this relationship between one's job and one's health care. So I do support single payer. I would refer to it as Medicare for all. I think that is the way forward for us. It recognizes, again, our connectedness as a society and the calling that we should all hear to heal those who are sick, to lift up those who are downtrodden. When my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few years ago, we didn't have to worry. He was a retiree, he had a great health care, but we didn't have to worry about all of the bills that would be coming. We could sit there and be with him in this very difficult time. I want that to be the reality of all Americans. Thank you.
As I said in my opening, I approach healthcare from a very personal stance. I believe that healthcare is a right and not a privilege. And the way that I would like to see us move forward is like, first, the ACA was a step. And I know at everybody's family dinners, there's a lot of chatter. I know my family dinner there is, doesn't work for some. But what I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see the people who have health insurance right now have it ripped away from them and have all those protections ripped away from them. I like to kind of do triage on the ACA, look at it as a step in a good direction, and go from there. Another thing that we need to do right now that will help us bring down the costs and help us move forward is we have to address pharmaceutical costs. It's ridiculous. In the United States, we consume 8% of pharmaceuticals worldwide. We account for 55% of the profits. Think about that for a second. We're essentially subsidizing cheaper drugs for everyone else in the world. That's silly, and it's not fair. And we need to unleash the power of Medicare to negotiate for drug prices and bring healthcare costs down for all of us. And in terms of how do we cover people, I want universal coverage. I want every person to have the ability to go to the doctor when they need, have access, have affordable healthcare insurance. There are some wonderful public options on the table. Whether it's Medicare for all, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's a combination. There's some wonderful options out there. I want to see us stabilize what we have and move forward together, bring down our drug costs as long as we all agree that healthcare is a right and not a privilege.
So let me start by saying, I think the health insurance companies have a chance to show that this can work, and it's not working. A system where they're a for-profit company, and the whole model is trying to make sure people pay premiums and when they need health care not cover them, is not working. I think we can all agree on that. Anyone who's had to call their insurance company after they've seen the doctor knows exactly what I'm talking about. As Dr. Gill mentioned, CEO pay. I've been involved in this issue for a very long time. I investigated health insurance companies in 2008 and 2009 because they were spending ridiculous amounts of money on CEO pay and advertising and not on health care. And so once I saw what those percentages were, and in some of those examples, it was over 40% of premium dollars were being spent on things not related to health care. That showed for me up close and personal that this thing's not working. And so the question is, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to move forward and get this thing addressed? I understand the interest and why single payer is being discussed, and I'm glad it's being discussed, and I think that is a good long-term solution. But in the meantime, right now, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get there quickly so that we can get people covered who aren't? And what I'm suggesting is, let's open up Medicare and allow anybody who wants it to be able to buy into it if they can afford it. And if they can, make sure that they get it. And that includes everything. That's covering everything that's out there for people. Now, people would say, well, where do you got a single payer? Do you close a single payer? I'm not saying that at all. But I can think from the perspective of someone who's been involved in these fights for a long time. I've gotten legislation passed here in Illinois, and I've done it in Washington. And I'm trying to push forward an agenda that will get this thing done as quickly as possible. And I think the quickest way to do that is opening up Medicare for everybody and allowing people the choice. Because we have a very large system right now that it's going to take some time to unwind. And The best way to do that is to give people choice. And then once we do that, once we show that the health insurance companies do not have a model that works at all, it will allow us to get to the next phase, which is ensuring everybody has health insurance that works.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna make a request to the audience that we hold our applause and put them when we have additional time for any questions. I appreciate your help with that. Okay, moving on to Black Lives Matter. Describe what Black Lives Matter means to you. That would be a question for
Yeah. Black Lives Matter, to me, is an extension of the amazing and transformative civil rights movement we've seen unfold over the last century. And clearly the work of that civil rights movement is not done. We are in society that is not, as much as we may individually be race blind, our society isn't. Disadvantage, whether economic or educational, breaks out very strongly along race lines. Our criminal justice system, despite everyone's efforts to make it race blind, is clearly not. The courts function in ways that disadvantage African Americans. Policing is oftentimes, again, despite the best efforts of our law enforcement officers, law enforcement agencies, are often not functioning in a way that is race blind. So calling this to our attention through Black Lives Matter is, I think, a prophetic voice in our society. And like the voices of prophets, it's not always easy to hear, but it's something that we do absolutely need to hear. And to be called, as Americans have been called for generations and generations, to be better at who we ought to be, to recognize this self-evident truth that all people are created equal and deserve to be treated equally. I'm very much in favor of a piece of legislation that's been proposed in the Senate by Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and, surprise, Rand Paul, the REDEEM Act, which seeks to equalize the way that the justice system works across race lines, but also across lines of age, so that we're not exposing juvenile populations to long-term imprisonment and to problems of recidivism that also plague communities in a way that is racially unequal.
Let me begin by saying I fully support the Black Lives Matter movement. And in Springfield, we have a group that I'm part of, Women Rising, and we coordinate with Black Lives Matter in community rallying and trying to put our collective voices together to power each other up. I think what it means to me is that we have a long way to go in our country. We have a long way to go because we are in a system that still is rigged, and it's rigged against African Americans. And we need to face the issues of white privilege head on. We've got to do it. We've got to talk about it, we have to be cognizant of it, and we have to see how we can help to change that. And there are things that we can do. We need to make sure that when we are looking at the education system, are we equally distributing our funds? Are we in the classrooms? Are we disciplining equally? Are we looking at children as children instead of children of different skin colors? In the workforce, how are we looking at promoting people? How are we looking at moving people through a company? And we have to be able to do that in an open dialogue, and hiding from it is not helping anybody. The Democratic Party is the party of civil rights, and I'm proud to be a Democrat. We just have a long way to go. And I'd like to see, when we had a discussion not too long ago about kneeling and what that means. What I'd like for us to address is that it is a peaceful protest trying to bring our attention to something in this nation, and what we should be really concerned about is why. Why do they feel it's necessary to kneel and protest? Let's pay attention to the why. Thank you.
to share a brief story that I think helps explain where I come from on these issues. About a year ago, a friend of mine, a very good friend, posted something and shared a story that she had not shared in her life, but she decided it was time to share this perspective. And she explained how one of her earliest memories is as a 3-year-old. She grew up in Indiana, and one of her earliest memories was being pulled over by the cops. Her dad was driving, and she can remember how afraid her dad was in that situation. And we talked a lot about this after she talked about the story, because she and I have a lot in common. She went to Harvard, I did not, so we don't have that in common. But we both worked in the House of Representatives, we're both attorneys. She's raising her family out in Minneapolis, I'm raising our family in the Midwest as well. The one difference we have, though, is that she's African American and I'm not. And I shared with her that my earliest memory, and I literally, the earliest memory that I've had in my life, is when my dad ran out of gas when I was 3 years old, and he got pulled over by the cops, and the cops came and helped us. And they drove us home, and I got to sit in the back of the police car, and they turned on the sirens, and it was a fun thing, and I always remember that. And so my earliest memory is police officers are helping me. And her earliest memory is police officers made her dad. And I think that's a major problem that we have in our country. And I think we all need to remember where these perspectives are coming from, and what these experiences are like, and what we can do with this. And so that's something I would bring to this as a member of Congress. I would always be reaching out to ensure that we're focusing on these issues and working on them. I mean, just a few of them are, one, mass incarceration is a major problem that we have in this country right now. And I think in the future, 500 years from now, when we look back on our time, I think even that's what I think we'll judge on. There are other systemic issues that we need to be facing, whether it's sentencing reform, or it's just the systemic issues that we have in the country. But I think it's very important to focus on these issues, and we're open to them, and we're always working on them.
Black lives do matter, and it's important to say it. There are many wonderful things about being an emergency department physician, and one of the joys of my working in the emergency department is that we take care of everybody, we treat everybody the same, and I think that that's how it should be in all areas of life. I'm a proud, card-carrying 24-year member of the American Civil Liberties Union, and it hurts me to watch the systemic bigotry that exists in our country and has always existed with redlining, school segregation, and the disparity in regards to prison sentencing. And it hurts me deeply, and I think that wounds have been reopened by this man in the White House. I think he's unleashed a rising tide of bigotry in this country, and I listened, seeing it endlessly, for Rodney Davis to speak out against his president when it comes to his president's standing by and being supportive of white supremacists in Charlottesville. And I hear nothing from Rodney Davis. And I think that's about the most important role that a representative can undertake, and that's to stand up for our belief system as a society. And it amazes me Rodney's silence with respect to this, and it kind of goes without saying we need to do much better. One of my heroes is James Baldwin, who wrote The Fire Next Time. And I hope that we can all learn from some of the things that he wrote and the way in which he lived his life. And eventually we'll have representatives that are not Rodney Davis, and we can do much better and live by our moral standards.
So we'll start with Betsy. Describe your stance on reproductive rights. Specifically, are you pro-life or pro-choice? And do you believe that employers should be able to deny reproductive health rights, included but not limited to birth control for female employees?
No, I don't want to know. When we talk about women's reproductive rights, it kills me that we're in 2017 and we're talking about whether or not we have the right to birth control. And then we have other people who are trying to make these decisions for us. Come on. So I am fully in support of women being in control of our own destinies, our own bodies, and having the exact same rights as our men. I'm raising a daughter and I'm raising 2 sons. And my daughter, when she goes to college next year, the boys are already there, I want want her to feel as safe as her brothers on campus. When she goes off into the workforce, I want her to earn equal pay for equal work. You know, when the kids are washing their floors at home, they earn the exact same pay. We don't parse out who gets what based on how much, you know, on her being a girl, and the workforce shouldn't work like that either. It's not how we're raising our girls. And I want to make sure that she has the exact same rights as her brothers over her own personal body. And I want the government to stay out of it. And reproductive rights and our ability to control when and how we get pregnant, that is my business. And if that is part of my overall health, that should be part of my overall health care plan. It's just how we take care of ourselves as women. And so hopefully that's very clear. Good. And do we have anything about this sexual harassment? Okay, well, I'm just going to say, I want to make sure that our girls are empowered with control of their own bodies and their own voices to be able to speak up in all circumstances. So we don't have a generation of Me Too. We have a generation of Never Us.
Let me be clear, I am a strong supporter of women's reproductive rights, and that is something I will say over and over and over again in this campaign. I think that is not something that we can negotiate on. I don't think there's any compromise on that. You're either for it or against it, and I'm a strong supporter of women's reproductive rights, so to be very clear on that. What's happening in Washington right now is an effort to undermine that at every single level, and we have to fight against it as much as we can. There is a movement across the country to break down those protections, and I'm frankly tired of it. I'm tired of seeing a bunch of men try to make these decisions. I think it's ridiculous. I think we need to listen to women on this one, given that this is what they know about. I'm honestly, I can't take it seeing this stuff anymore coming out of Washington. Stuff about employer-based decisions is ridiculous as well. It's another reason to show why we also do need to have people who opt out of that system entirely because it's not working. Their employers should not get to decide what kind of health care that you have. I think that's ridiculous. And then, I just want to make a broader point. I participated in a rally in Bloomington about a month ago to try to get equal rights in the past in the state of Oklahoma. The fact that we don't have that thing passed yet is ludicrous. It is ludicrous, and I met some very nice women there who told me that they were part of the fight in the 1970s, and I was really good. We need to get that done. We need to get that passed in Illinois. We need to get it through the rest of the states so that can be part of our Constitution. Because this has been going on for way too long, and we just need to have people in Congress who understand what these challenges are, and who will stand up for them and will fight for them. And frankly, we walked by Rodney Davis' office on that march when we were there, and Rodney wasn't around. Rodney's not around on any of these issues, and I think it's time to send a message to him that that's not okay.
I echo much of what Betsy and Eric had to say. I am passionately pro-choice. Before I went into emergency medicine, I worked several years in family practice, did a lot of obstetrics, delivered hundreds of babies. I've been president of the emergency department for hundreds of miscarriages. It's something that I dealt with on a regular basis, and it's something that should be a very private decision between a woman and her health care provider. I'm a 20-year member of the group called Physicians for Reproductive Choice. It's something that's very important to me. I've done volunteer work for Planned Parenthood. And with respect to the other part of the question, no, employers should not be dictating what health care options are available to women with regards to their reproductive health care. I'd like to segue off into a similar issue, but one that we don't talk about often, if all, at these forums. We're here talking about where life begins. I'd like to talk about end of life. This is something that's been very important to me for a long, long time. I've been a part of the death with dignity movement. And it's something that's going to impact everybody in this room one day. If it hasn't already impacted you with regards to a family member. I believe that in Washington, D.C., we should be taking federal steps to allow every American to have the rights that are granted to those Americans in 7 states. Starting with Oregon 20 plus years ago, California added it a year or two ago, in that terminal patients
who have less than 6 months to live, who jump through a number of hoops, demonstrating that they're not mentally ill, that they are indeed terminal, that they have the option to see a physician and be provided with medication that allows them to take their own life if and when they want to. The most important point with regards to this is that this isn't a choice between life and death. This is a choice between two types of death. And if someone doesn't want to suffer terribly from an expanding mass within their skull, I don't think it's Rodney Davis' place to tell them that you must suffer. 70% of Catholics agree with you. Thanks.
I am who I am today because of 5 very strong women. My mother, my wife, and my 3 daughters. And the notion that Donald Trump would have anything to say about their reproductive rights, about their bodies, about what is good and right for them is to me patently ludicrous. A woman's right to choose is, to me, sacrosanct. It is something that I would fight for tooth and nail in Congress. The continued attacks by the right on the woman's right to choose are morally abhorrent because they're disingenuous. They're not just an attack on abortion. They're not just an attack on a woman's right to choose. They're an attack on under-resourced women's rights to choose. Let's be clear. If one of their daughters faced a choice, they're going to Switzerland. They're not going to Planned Parenthood. So we need to make sure that Planned Parenthood is funded and secure, and we need to make sure that it's absolutely clear what these laws, what the attacks on reproductive rights are doing. It is not an effort to end abortion. It's an effort to restrict access to abortion to people whom those in power don't trust. So that having been said, I think it's also important to note that if we move to Medicare for all, to a single-payer healthcare system, we can once and for all end the choice that many women are having to face between their job and access to reproductive care, contraception is the word I'm looking for. I'm sorry. Contraception. That's not a choice of anybody in this room or anyone in the industry. Thank you.
All right, next topic is church and state. Describe your position on religious freedom bills. Do you believe and support the founding fathers' notion of the separation of church and state? If so, how would you support the separation of church and state if elected? And lastly, do you think religious institutions should be taxed? That goes to
No, I got it. First off, if the tornado siren's off, just so you can come with me, I know where the base is. Something's happening. The church and state is something that it's one of the founding tenets, the separation of church and state is one of the founding tenets of our country. And religious freedom is why people came here. And I think they were absolutely right, the founders. They didn't get everything right, but I think they were absolutely right on understanding that religious freedom is critical to an open democracy that functions. And there has been an effort over time, over and over and over again, to undermine that. And as a member of Congress, I would be incredibly protective and supportive of ensuring that we enshrine the separation of church and state in everything that we possibly do. So, I think we all have a right to practice religion however we want to practice it, in whatever fashion we want to practice it. And that the government has no role to play with that whatsoever. And the government has no role to play in that whatsoever. And we need to ensure that we have members of Congress who understand that too. Because we've seen it time and again throughout our country's history where there has been an effort to enshrine certain laws. There's an effort in Alabama to put the Ten Commandments in the school system. That's not what we need to be doing. And then there's been an effort recently at the federal level to allow religious sort of aspects to come into decisions in many aspects of our lives. And I'm a strong supporter of right to choose who we want to be, what we want to be, and whether that's on religious freedom, whether that's on anything else. So that's it.
I'm proud to be endorsed by a group called the Free Thought Equality Fund. They support the separation of church and state. I have long supported the separation of church and state. As I alluded to, I'm a longtime member of Americans United for the separation of church and state. As I mentioned earlier, I think it is ludicrous as part of this so-called tax reform bill that they slipped in there that churches may now start politicking while still paying no taxes. I think if they want to politic, like I politic, they should pay taxes the way that I pay taxes. I certainly believe in religious freedom. I think you should be able to be Christian or Wiccan or whatever you choose, or nothing at all, if that's what you choose to be. I'll be very interested in the Supreme Court's ruling with respect to this baker who didn't want to make a cake for a gay couple that was getting married. It strikes me as a no-brainer that they weren't asking him to engage in gay sexual activity. They're asking him to make a cake. And this is very, very fundamental. As a doctor, as a human being, but especially as a physician, it's very clear to me you are born what you are born. With respect to sexuality, orientation, and this baker to be excused on the basis of religious freedoms, that will be unconscionable with this Supreme Court very bad. Thank you.
Well, I have given my professional life to the study of religion in America. And I am aware that religion has been at the core of many of the best moments in American life. That the abolition movement has its roots in the churches. That the civil rights movement has its roots in the churches. So I think we do need to be careful about characterizing religion as something that is always a negative force, that people of faith shouldn't speak from their faith when they're involved in politics. What we're concerned about is an institutional connection between the two. And in that, I think we need to look to the Bill of Rights and the words that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or respecting the free exercise thereof. And so we have the Establishment Clause and we have the Free Exercise Clause. Where I'm concerned at the moment is in this sort of through the looking glass move that the right has made, turning free exercise into a right to oppress. And we need to all be on the lookout for that and have, as my kindergarten teacher would say, have your thinking caps on, because every time they say free exercise, what they mean is freedom to oppress, or freedom to marginalize, or freedom to hate. And to me, that is not at all in the spirit of those words in our Bill of Rights, and it's not at all the best of America. We are at our best when we're comfortable with our diversity, when we can see the many contributions that people from different faith traditions have made to our national life, and when we can embrace those for what they are. So I would be a congressman who would stand up for religious freedom as freedom, but also be very wary of these moments when we are, in fact, establishing a church. Thank you.
I get very worried about how religion in conversation is changing. And I go back and I think about when my kids were really little, Jack and Will. Remember the 2000 Olympics when Michael Johnson and Carl Lewis were running the 800-meter dash? Anybody remember them? All right, so we were looking at the 800-meter dash, and the boys were about 3 and 4 at the time, and they said, well, everybody has different starting points. That doesn't seem fair. And I said, no, that it's all laid out. It just looks like that, but they're all running the same distance. That's how I think of religion. We're all in our own lanes. Some people think they've got an advantage. Some people, started. The point is that we are each on our own track, and we're all running the same distance. We're all running for the finish line. And I'd like to see religion stay in its own track and stay away from our laws. Because I get really nervous when people start using it as a weapon. And I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I chose Catholicism. And I chose Catholicism saying out loud that I will never, ever, ever support a law that puts me in the middle of a woman and her body. And I don't support any laws that do that. And so they can coexist as long as you as a person and you as a representative don't try and blur the lines. And I want to make sure that those stay separate, that we each have our freedom to exercise our religion without infringing on other people's. And if a church decides to get involved from the pulpit by telling people who to vote for, I think that should jeopardize their funding. I mean, their tax status, and we should start paying taxes.
Next question. Describe your stance on DACA. Describe your stance on DACA.
Oh, yeah. I'm very much in favor of DACA and allowing young children who were guilty of nothing to continue to live in this country. I think that this direct is just another element of that rising tide of bigotry that I was talking about. The gentleman in the White House who talks about building a wall and having Mexicans pay for it. The presence of a wall is important. It doesn't matter who he's talking about building. It just further adds to the pain that I think that he brings to people that have been beat down upon for a long, long time. You know, this immigration crisis, as it were, is something that has been present with us for a long, long time, and it's something that is an outgrowth in many ways of our trade agreements. NAFTA played at least indirect, if not a more direct role in the presence of 8 million or more of the 11 or 12 million undocumented immigrants in this country. And it's a very multifactorial problem. But I think that to do what the president has done, to strip away a program that President Obama put in place that was very popular with respect to allowing these young people to be in this country is reprehensible. Many of these young people put their lives on the line within our military and in other ways within our jobs, and many of them have contributed to society in many ways, and I find it another inexcusable step that the president has taken. And I don't see Representative Davis stepping forward to present within a 6-month window a program to replace what President Obama had put in place some years ago. Thanks.
I think we can stop expecting Representative Davis to take a leadership role in any On DACA, I support the program and would love to see a wide path to citizenship for those who are involved in it. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing them referred to as dreamers, although they may dream in their sleep. They are not dreamers. They're workers, they're students, they're brothers, they're sisters, they're contributors to our society. I think we should name them as such. And moreover, they're a representation of some of what is best in America, that is immigration and diversity. More broadly, I want to be very clear. I think walls are for cowards. And I am really troubled that our brothers and sisters on the other side of the aisle, those who once cheered for a man who called for a tyrant to tear down a wall, are now cheering for a man who seeks to build the wall. I'm not sure where that transition happened, but to me it's indicative of the rot that's taken hold of the soul of the Republican Party on the question of diversity and of immigration, which is an absolute abrogation of American history when it comes to immigration and diversity. Look around this room. Is there anyone here who didn't come from some other place at some other time? My grandparents on my mother's side were refugees from Hitler's Germany. An interfaith couple, they were illegal there. Many, many generations ago, my father's ancestors came over on the Mayflower. They were illegal where they were. We all come from some sort of immigrant history. And the sooner that we can recognize that and embrace it, by far the better off we are going to be. Thank you.
Just like Dan was saying, my family as immigrants. My grandma's family actually left the island of Madeira because they were Protestants and the Catholics were persecuting them. And my grandpa's family was Italian. They came to Illinois for coal mines. And they had really good lives here. And so immigration is not just, it's my story, but it's all of our stories. And I think that we need to have the love and respect for the generations that came before us and fought for us to have good middle-class lives here in Illinois. And it's the same way that the current administration is using religion to divide us. He's using immigrants to divide us too. He's trying to pit us against each other. And when he revs up the crowd saying, build that wall, it should leave, I think it does leave all of us with pits in our stomach because it's disgusting. I wouldn't be here, and you wouldn't be here either. I do want to see us have a good path for immigrants to become citizens. I do want our dreamers to be able to stay here. We had a rally the other day in support of DACA, and a young woman from Illinois College had the courage, as a dreamer, to come speak to us in person. And she wanted to assure people that as a dreamer, she didn't qualify for federal student aid, that she wasn't getting any of the benefits that citizens are getting. She didn't want anybody thinking that citizens were losing out because of her. And for her to stand there and defend herself and talk about something that she had nothing to do with, she came here when she was 2, and talk about what she wanted to do to help our nation, that's what we should be looking for. And that's what we should be promoting, not divisiveness, but togetherness.
So, first off, I'm 100% opposed to what the president's been doing, and I support the program as well as I think that's something. I want to take a step back and talk about and put this in context of what the president, our current president, has done. The United States government made a decision, and it was not, let's not suggest this was a full solution on immigration reform, but it was a step and said, if you were brought here as a child, please come forward, let us know who you are, and we'll work with you. The promises were made. Our government made promises, and people came forward, and they submitted their information, and they trusted what our government would do. And we're now reversing that and breaking that promise. What kind of country does that make us if that's what we do? And I think it's important that we remember that that is what's happening. Maybe there's other perspective on whether or not DACA was the right decision in the first place. I personally think that it was. If you think it was the wrong decision, fine. I disagree with you, but the notion that we had made this decision and people came forward, and now that's going to be used against them, that's terrible. That's a terrible place for our country to be in. And I think we need to all be standing up for that. And people in Trump's old administration know that. And there's a lot of chatter coming out of the administration at the time. People saying they were opposed to legislation. And this has been said before too, but I want to make the point of saying, where's Robert Davis on any of this? Where is he? Congress has a role to play. He does not report to the president. That's not his boss. His boss, the people of this district. And he's disappeared on all of these issues, whether it's on DACA or it's on everything else that we've been talking about. And it's because he wants to pass. He doesn't want to have to address it because he's afraid of what the president's going to do to him. But it's time for people to start standing up and saying enough is enough. So I'll just be clear. I was strong supporter of DACA. I think the president is.
Next question is on Citizens United. What specifically will you do about Citizens United?
I would start by introducing legislation to overturn what has been the single worst, I share a position on the single worst decision of the Supreme Court's made probably in the last 100 years. Not just because it stood on poor legal ground, unstable legal ground, but because it utterly transformed our politics and transformed them in a way that tilted the playing field away from common voices, from our voices, and toward those of the privileged corporations, those who are able to mass their millions of dollars together to sway our government. So implementing campaign finance laws that make it impossible for dark money to flow into politics. We need to have sunshine in these realms of political donations. We need to know where the money is coming from that is backing the NRA. We need to know where the money is coming from that is supporting pro-fossil fuel legislation. And I think that when we see that kind of accountability as the law of the land, we can start to see politics and politicians who are more accountable to the people that they need to be accountable. The reason we're accountable to, the reason we're saying so many negative things about Ron Davis, all of which are true, is that he doesn't have to worry about our voices and our pocketbooks. The donations that are keeping him in office are not coming from us. You can look at some of the sources of these. There is some sunlight that shines on the corporate money that goes to him, but there's a lot that doesn't. And we just need to, if we want to reclaim our politics, we need to know exactly where that money is coming from and make him more accountable to us and not corporations.
One of the worst decisions in the history of the United States Supreme Court, Citizens United. I know they're working on a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. I just think that's going to take too long. So I suggested that they go after them on a tax basis. Because if they want to have all of the rights of an individual, why not be taxed like an individual instead of a corporation? We don't get all the write-offs that the corporations do. Make them choose. Why can't we do that? Why can't we end it right now by changing their tax status? They thought it was an interesting idea, so we'll see how that plays out. But the dark money that is in politics is polluting everything. And how many of you saw the commercial that was about tax reform, that Robbie Davis had a woman reading her tax reform book? Okay. So it's a commercial. Before we even had anything about tax reform out. And there's special interest who's saying, thanks, Rodney Davis, for middle-class tax reform. And she's reading a booklet that looks like it's a tax budget booklet and touting a program or a budget and a reform that hasn't even come out yet. Who paid for that? I don't know. And it's going to get worse and worse. And I agree with John, we need to be able to shine light on it. We need to overturn Citizens United. And in the meantime, if we can't get the constitutional amendment through quickly, and in 2018, let's go after tax status, let's make them choose. If they want individual voice, let's tax them like individuals and take away their corporate benefits.
So I bring up Citizens United in my old meeting because I think it is so critical to every other issue that we face. And I bring it up because of my own experience in these roles I've had before. So I'm a former LO assistant attorney general, and I've also spent time as an investigative counsel in the Senate and the House of Representatives. In those roles, my job was to uncover problems, build a record about the problem, find a solution, and get a law passed. And every one of those investigations that I've worked on, whether it was related to the environment or healthcare or related to workers' rights, we were facing stiff opposition. And that stiff opposition was moneyed interests who had a huge impact on our politics because of the fact that they were able to play the game better than everybody else because the game was based on money. And that's where I come from on these issues, and that's why I bring up Citizens United over and over and over again. We have to fix these issues, and the way we're going to go about doing it, one, we need to, look, we're going to have to win the White House back. I put this from the perspective of the problem is that the Supreme Court has interpreted the law in a way that's very damaging to all of us. And it's because corporations are not people. I'll make that very clear. If you understand what a corporation is at a very basic level, a corporation is designed to maximize shareholder value. Whether or not it's Exxon, Disney, Apple, any of them, they all have the same purpose for their business. And if they don't maximize shareholder value, they can get sued. None of us are like that. I'm not maximizing shareholder value. That's not what I'm looking for. And I've investigated enough corporations to know that they behave very differently than people. If every time I investigated one and I found bad conduct, guess what the reason for it was? To make money. That's what they exist for. We need to understand that. That's what they're a tool that we should all be using. The problem is the tool that we've developed in order for our society to construct itself and build things It's taking too much power in Washington. That's the problem that we're facing. And to do that, we need to get the pilot process, so we need public financing, we need more disclosure laws, and we need to get the White House back so we can get a Supreme Court that will obey our citizens.
I agree with everything that has been said here. I have signed a pledge to work toward a constitutional amendment on the impact of Citizens United, an amendment that declares that corporations are not people and that money is not speech. It's extremely important. Eric's right. It touches every other part of public policy as we slowly descend into an oligarchy in this country, and as we have the biggest income inequality in recorded human history in our society. It changes all of our lives, and it touches everything. It touches healthcare, it touches climate change and energy, it touches education. I alluded earlier to the fact that we need to have different priorities, and we don't have different priorities. We have the priorities that we have because we have a corporate-owned government and political system. If we had the proper priorities in place, people would say that tuition-free access to public universities and colleges and trade schools is a pipe dream. It's not a pipe dream. The money is there. It's a question of what you do with your money. You know what it costs to send everybody that wants that type of education, to send them $8 billion a year. And let's put that in perspective. We spend 10 times that on the for-profit private health insurance industry that buys off our Congress people every year. We spend $800 billion that goes into the program. An even better example, myself and perhaps a lot of the people in this room were opposed to the invasion of Iraq. You remember the drumbeat for war that was building up in January, February 2003. We didn't get our way, did we? Had we gotten our way, the money that we poured into that and the consequences of that would have covered 50 to 100 years of free school for everybody that wanted to go to school in this country. But our priorities are foul, the arms manufacturers are on the Congress people, and we have what we have.
We'll start with Betsy for the next question. It has been increasingly clear that Russia meddled in our presidential election. If elected, please describe what you would do to protect the sanctity of our electoral process.
Well, I think that we've got to shine light on it. We're still trying to figure out what exactly they did. I think that we can all agree that they did something to the extent that, but didn't it go from like 100,000 people received or saw the Facebook ads to then 25 million, and now didn't they say like 160 million people have been reversed vote those during the 2016 campaign. So I think that we're going to have to have a little bit more, I don't use the word oversight, communication with some of the social media people and helping them figure out how we're going to identify some of the fake news. And I also think that it's something that we need to start teaching in classrooms, because it can't just be the people at the top. It's got to be, we've got to teach our kids how to identify what they're reading and how to source it, so that they know what's true and what's not true, and they know how to figure it out for themselves. And clearly, we're in a time right now, I don't know if maybe you watch Stranger Things, but we're in the upside down, right? That's where we are when all of a sudden Putin is our friend. It's crazy. And how are we going to protect ourselves? And we've got to make sure that there's a lot of local elections that are happening in 2018, and really they're all really important. County clerks, ones who are in charge of our voting process in the county clerks. We've got to make sure that the people that we're putting in those positions are as open and transparent as possible with voter registration and making sure that we keep the sanctity of voting with the voters.
So I would take a couple minutes to talk about oversight and institutions. Congress, when we think of Congress, we think a lot about passing laws, and that is a big part of what Congress does. But another incredibly important part is doing oversight over the executive branch, because that's the job of the separate branch of government, the checks and balances. And I bring this up because my background is on the former counsel for the House Oversight Committee and for the Senate, And my job in those roles was to conduct investigations and conduct oversight over the federal government, over the White House, over the executive branch to ensure that it was doing its job properly. We have allegations right now in this country that our president's campaign colluded with Russians during our presidential election. And there is a criminal investigation that should continue, and that's important, but I want to be very clear. That is separate from what Congress should be doing. Congress has a political reason and a checks and balances reason to be conducting its own oversight and investigations, and that is incredibly important. We just saw last week a member of the campaign, the Trump campaign, pled guilty to lying about meetings with Russians. So that will continue to play itself out. I don't know where that's at yet, but I know that we need people in Congress right now, in 2018, who know how to do this work and done it before. And I raise that because I don't know this for sure, but I think I'm the person running in the country for Congress who's conducted congressional investigation and who knows how to do that work. And if I get myself to Congress, you can rest assured that you're going to see me at hearings asking pointed questions of members of the Trump administration about what they did and when they do and what they did about it. And that's where we're at right now in our country. It's very important. All these other policy issues we want to push are incredibly important as well, but let's be clear. In 2018, we're not going to get the presidency back. Congress's biggest job is going to be oversight over the executive branch and need people there to fight.
It's very clear what happened with respect to Russian involvement in the 2016 election. I would recommend to everybody here that you watch. I just finished watching a two-part frontline program called Putin's Revenge. Outstanding, and makes it crystal clear with respect to what happened from the level of social media to the infiltration of Hillary Clinton's campaign manager by the Russians. And the sorry thing is that we knew much of this. Our intelligence, this isn't coming to light after the fact. President Obama knew several months before he met with congressional leadership, and it's not going to be fixed until we have leaders on both sides who put country above party. You know, when Mitch McConnell says that he's going to raise a sting when we let the truth out 2 or 3 months before the election because it might cost his party, then that's probably not treasonous at a legal level, but that's the type of leadership that we don't need. And with respect to being secure with regards to our elections, I've been saying this ever since 2000 when Al Gore got robbed, as far as I'm concerned, that we need a paper trail at every voting site in America with every election.
I think it's sort of poetic that this is the moment in our conversation with that. The judgment of God appears to be coming down on us. Because if everything that we've been talking about, all the good government sorts of programs that we've been talking about up here get passed, and our democracy is not secure, our freedoms are not secure, we're not any better off. What this country stands for is free and fair elections. And when that's compromised, the whole thing is compromised. So this is an absolute priority. It ought to be an absolute priority for everybody in government. And the fact that it isn't is, to me, quite telling. And it's also pointing to what the solution, where the solution begins. And it begins with electing good people. Choosing good people, people of integrity, people of character, who won't hear the siren song of Russian money and be drawn to it, whose loyalties aren't divided between the good of the country and the wealth of their family, who go into these offices with a clear vision, a clear moral compass, what is right, what is wrong, and you don't have to worry about that. And frankly, in 2016, there were good questions about both of these candidates. And I think that's kind of why we are where we are now. So it's on us up here to be good people, to not be open to these sorts of enticements that have always been there. And it's also on you as the electorate, as voters, to be informed and to care about integrity. And to care about the moral compass of the people that you see standing for election. I think that is the first thing that we need to do to get the system right.
Okay, we're about 10 minutes before 3 o'clock, so we're going to move to closing remarks. We'll go ahead and start with
So first, just say thank you for everybody for coming out today. We're in November. We're still a year away from this election, and I think it's a very good sign that this room is full of people who are wanting to pay attention. That's the first step, because in order for us to get this country back on the right direction, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take people stepping forward for the first time in campaigns and running, which is where I'm at. I've been involved a long time. This is for the first time as a candidate. It's always going to take a lot of us stepping forward, whether it's volunteering or getting involved in the way that we have been before. And I have to say, it's been inspiring for me to meet a lot of you who are doing the same thing, because I think we all know where we're headed right now. The country's headed in the wrong direction. What I bring to this, I want to put my record up against Rodney Davis' general election. And my record is fighting for people throughout my career. As a Illinois Assistant Attorney General and as a Chief Investigative Counsel in the Senate, my job is to uncover problems, find solutions, to get those solutions passed in the law. And a few of those examples are, as an Illinois Assistant Attorney General, I was fighting for students who were being preyed upon by student loan servicing companies when they're trying to pay down their debt. And we had an effort to fix that. Well, where's Rodney been on that issue? The Trump administration rolled back those protections, and Rodney Davis said nothing. I've also fought for workers' rights here in Illinois to make sure they're not subject to ridiculous fees just to access their pay on these things called payroll cards. We've got the strongest law put in place in the country on this issue. Where's Rodney Davis been? He's been with the big banks on rolling back protections that were put in place for consumers after the financial crisis. I've also been out there fighting for people on insurance and investigating health insurance companies who are spending too much money on CEO pay and on advertising instead of on health care. Where's Rodney been? Rodney has been with the health insurance company by pushing a bill that would hurt people across this district, take away health insurance, and hurt rural hospitals. And you know why he was there? Because of the health insurance companies. And the last point is, I have conducted oversight over presidential administrations. I know how to do it, and that's why I've been doing this job. And where has Rodney been? He's been silent on every one of these issues. So that's what this race is about, and that's how we get our country back.
I want to thank Action Metro East and Erica Kahutak, the conference met, and the College Democrats for putting this together. I want to thank everybody that came out on a gloomy day to listen to us jabber on. And I think the fact that you're here reflects what I say all the time. This congressional district is an amazing place. It is filled with people that are bright and intelligent and thoughtful and kind and caring and compassionate. And this district hasn't been represented by Rodney Davis for the last almost 6 years. It's been misrepresented by Rodney Davis for the last nearly 6 years. Back in 2012, by 7.7 big points, voters in this district picked a candidate that supports single-payer health care. By 7 big points, they picked a candidate that supports a woman's right to choose, that supports aggressive action against climate change. By 7 points, they selected a candidate who supports marriage equality. But an accident happened. They split their vote just enough that a man representing the minority went to Washington. Rodney Davis is there representing minority opinion. It was an accident, and we can fix it. I've spent almost 30 years as a physician working throughout this district, providing care to people in Madison County and Bond County and DeWitt and Champaign and McLean counties. And over that time frame, people have come to understand that I do the things that I do, whether it be medicine or politics, simply because I care deeply about their well-being. And they appreciate that. They see far too little of that caring instinct in the world of politics. They appreciate it to the extent that they move. They move their vote. And we demonstrated that in 2012, and we essentially won the thing. I'm up here with 3 terrific people today that I would argue that I'm the only one of the 4 who has demonstrated the ability to take those votes, secure those votes necessary to end Rodney Davis' time in Washington, D.C. So thank you for being out here today, and hope to see many of you over the next year.
I want to echo the thank yous that have been uttered already. It's wonderful to see everyone here and so engaged. I want to be your next congressman. And when I say that I want to be your next congressman, I mean that I want to do the work of being your congressman. I want to get up every day, whether it's here in the 13th district or in Washington, D.C., and work to bend the power of this great nation to help working and middle-class families. I know that the federal government can do a tremendous amount of good in our lives. I've experienced it in a little way that I wanted to share with you as we close. I was a pretty good student in high school, and I had this dream. I wanted to go to Harvard. My dad was a very hardworking guy, and I learned a lot from him. The system didn't work for him, and in the spring of my sophomore year, he lost his job. And all the money that he and my mom had set aside to send me and my brothers to college, that money became mortgage money, it became grocery money, it became utility money, until the day when he pulled me aside and said, "John, we don't have money to send you to college anymore." I know it was the hardest day of his life at that point. That's when the federal government stepped in. I applied for and received an ROTC scholarship, 4 years of service, 4 years of tuition. And when I was living out that scholarship, I thought that it was the Navy that gave me the privilege of going to Harvard. What I've come to see over my life is that it was my dream of Harvard that gave me the privilege of service. Service in the Navy, 11 years, 4 of those on active duty, 7 in the reserves as an intelligence officer. Service teaching internet literacy on the south side of Chicago in public schools. And service, I hope, is your next accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you for today. This has been wonderful. I'm a daughter of the 13th District and a mother who's raised her children here in the 13th District. And I'm asking to be your next representative because I desperately want to have everyone on board that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. I want everyone to head the same direction with education. We have to educate our next generation, whether it's apprenticeships, 2-year, 4-year. Let's make an investment in our kids and prepare them for their future and open doors to better lives. Let's protect our senior citizens. I want to stand up for Social Security and Medicare. I want to honor the generations that have led us and fought for us, and I want to make sure that we are giving that respect back to them. And I'd like to say that this has been a very good week for our campaign. On Wednesday, Emily's List, which is a national organization, endorsed my campaign for the 13th District. Now, Emily's List has a lot of races around the nation, and they picked me, they picked this race, they picked in Illinois. I'm the first challenger in Illinois to receive this endorsement in this cycle. And what that says is, on a national level, they're looking in the 13th District in Illinois, they're seeing my candidacy and they're saying, this is our pick, we're getting behind her, let's help her go. And then over the weekend, Senator Dick Durbin also endorsed my candidacy for Congress. And in his words, he said, she's the right candidate at the right time. And I believe I am the right candidate at the right time to take this healthcare fight to Rodney Davis, to take the jobs fight to Rodney Davis, hold him accountable for not representing the 13th District. And I'm asking for your help to get our campaign through the primary and get there to take on Rodney Davis in the general. Thank you.
On behalf of Action Metro East and the SIU College Dennis, I'd like to thank each of the candidates for participating in our event today. I'd also like to thank the audience for joining us. And just a couple quick announcements. First announcement is tomorrow, we have more exciting political action with the SIU College Dems, the Navy College Republicans at 6 p.m. in this forum here. And second, we have an upcoming Action Metro East meeting next week, November 12th, 1 to 3 at the Right, thank you everyone. It's been great.